Welcome to the Gita In Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers. We got Stella and Kalachandji back today, so we're excited about that. Welcome back. They had a big trip. And we are still in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā. We're reading through verse by verse, being transformed from the inside out. That's the way the spiritual knowledge works. And we're starting with text 20 today, chapter 13, text 20. We have some things coming up. At the end of the month, we have a yoga festival at New Vrindavan. There's still a couple places left for that. And pilgrimage, February 12th through the 24th. So it's 12-day pilgrimage. We'll start in Rishikesh. We'll hit up the Kirtan festival there. We'll go to Jaipur, and then we'll end in Govardhan in Vrindavan. And this experience will change your life, like guaranteed change your life. I know that for a fact. So if you are thinking about it, you should sign up. And you should sign up before the end of the month while the early bird special is still here. So it is probably, well, it is like the greatest value pilgrimage you will find because I hardly put any overhead on the price. And we use all the same tour operators that other people do. So you will definitely get more than your money's worth. So please come with us. It will be ecstatic. Um, okay, so let's get into this. Chapter 13, text 20. Shakti, do you want to say our prayers for us this morning?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mataji. Om Agyana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Vanchakalpa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadahara Srivasari Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you. Thank you, Shakti. I was just thinking, you know what it is about going to India that is just so special is that it's like it's one thing to come to these classes and hear this philosophy and then like go back into our culture and our everyday lives. But it's another thing to be just like immersed in this spiritual bubble, in this spiritual place with just such a high spiritual frequency that it's not like, some of us sometimes feel like we have our spiritual life and you have your material life, and it's always like, okay, how do I balance them? But when you go to India, it's like it's such an immersion that you experience what it's like for those things to be just like beautifully integrated. And you not just experience, but you like feel it on every level. And so it just really brings this knowledge, these practices to the next level. And I remember when I came home from pilgrimage, I was afraid that like, the chanting wouldn't feel the same. This wouldn't feel the same. That was like my biggest fear. But my experience was that it did. Um, just from having that super potent like immersion. Um, and that was really that was invaluable. So that just came to me. I wanted to share that. So we'll start 13:20. I will share my screen. Let me pull it up. Did you guys just hear my baby just now? She woke up and she ran over here. Did you guys hear her? Let's see. Anyway, I apologize if you heard the crying. Okay. I will share my screen. Shraddhanjali, do you want to read this one for us?
Sure.
Let me pull up the right one. It's 20. Okay.
Praktim Purusham Cheva Vidhyanandi Ubhavapi Vikaramscha Gunamscheva Vidhi Praktri Sambhavam. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature.
Thank you. So we're entering into another section of chapter 13 here. And if we remember in the very first verse of chapter 13, Arjuna brought up like 6 different topics that he wanted more information on. And so this section is covering the last question from that list of things in the first verse. And that is broadly, what is material nature, or matter? And what are the living entities or spirit? We talked earlier in the Gita about this word Sankhya philosophy, which is essentially a way of analyzing reality, and so that you can separate spirit from matter. And so for in answering this question, kind of digging in deeper about what is spirit, what is matter, Krishna begins with 2 important points. Okay, and the first that he says here is that both matter and spirit are beginningless. They're beginningless. And at first, this might sound a little bit strange because we think of matter as temporary. And it is. In one sense, it is. The body's temporary. Our house is temporary. Your car is temporary. We've talked about all of these things. Everything we can point to in existence comes into existence for some time and then disappears. So when Krishna says that it's everything and it's beginningless, what is he actually saying here? He's not saying that it's eternal. He's saying that the energy is preserved. So if you think of like a building, the building isn't eternal. One day it gets built, one day it gets demolished, but the materials don't just simply disappear. The steel, the concrete, they continue to exist, but in different forms. And this is like modern science law of like conservation of energy. Things change form, but they don't simply vanish. So that's the point that he's making here. The forms themselves are temporary, but the underlying material energy is eternal because it is one of God's energies. It's sometimes manifest, it's sometimes unmanifest, but it always exists. But there's all these transformations. Okay, spirit is different. Spirit it's not only eternal, but it's different in that it doesn't undergo all these material transformations at all. So that's why, again and again, Krishna keeps encouraging us to shift our attachments. Because if we're attached to temporary forms, eventually you're going to suffer because every form changes. And we'll all get attached to material forms in some degree, and that's inevitable. But it's really like, where do we seek our deepest dependence on, for our happiness, for our stability in life? Because we should understand that if it's on temporary forms, then we're gonna go down with the horse. But if we're attached to that which is eternal, my relationship with God, this is a happiness that is never taken away. So that's one thing. We should understand that all material forms, they're beginningless, but the forms themselves are temporary. And the material energy is beginningless, but the forms themselves are temporary. I'm sorry. Okay, so then he makes a second point. He says that all of these transformations that are happening belong to material nature. So in other words, all the changing, the growing, the aging, the breaking, this is all within the arena of matter. And let's take it back to our movie analogy, because this is such a real analogy for us. When you're sitting in a theater and some like big explosion happens, or maybe you're like into romantic movies and people are falling in love, whatever it is, like where are these changes actually taking place? They're not taking place in the audience. They're happening on the screen. So similarly, all the changes that we're experiencing in this world are taking place within material nature. And we know material nature is made up of these three modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. And these modes combine to produce all of the variety that we experience. And if those words are new to you, we'll dig into them much, much more. But they're just basically energies that influence material nature. And they create our experiences. So just like the primary colors on a TV screen, can create thousands of different images. These modes of material nature create these endless combinations of different experiences, emotions, attractions, aversion. Okay, so all this to understand that Krishna is helping us distinguish that these changes belong to matter. So we should understand that these changes belong to matter. They're not us. So then, if we understand that, the question naturally arises, if all these changes are happening in material nature, then who is it that is actually experiencing them? And so this is where Krishna is going next. So for now, we're just really digging in deep to separate matter from spirit. So 1321. Shraddhanjali says infinite variety and infinite combinations. Yeah, it's beautiful. And as spiritualists, the goal is not to get engrossed in all the variety, but to get engrossed and really inspired in awe of the one who created the variety.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we connect back to God. And that relationship itself is eternal and will always fulfill our hearts. But if we get attached to a certain variety of the form, we're like, attaching our cart to a runaway horse. Like who knows? Because the forms by nature are constantly changing. But the energy will always be there. The energy will always be there because it is God's, and God is eternal. So we appreciate the energy because it is connected to God. And that is how we just go up and up and up in our spiritual lives and in our lives. Very nice. Thank you, Stella. 1321. Whenever you're ready, Shraddhanjali.
Karya karana kartritve hetu praktir ujyate purushaha sukha dukhanam bhoktridve hetur yujate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world.
Okay, so this is a fun one to dig into. So Krishna's continuing here to distinguish between matter and spirit. And he's saying that material nature is responsible for what's happening in this material world. So bodies change, seasons change, things are created and destroyed. The body gets hungry, sick, tired. This is material nature. It's just constantly doing what material nature does. But he's saying that the living entity is the cause of the happiness and distress that we experience within it. So if material nature is like the movie screen, the living entity is the cause of the happiness and distress that we experience in it. And why is this? Because the living entity wants to enjoy material nature. Because the living entity has this enjoy propensity, we all do, We're like pleasure seekers by nature. But what happens is when we say the living entity, we're talking about our souls. What happens is that that desire is misdirected and it's engrossed in material things. And then those material things inevitably cause us happiness and distress because they're always changing. And we're seeking eternal pleasure. So it's kind of like this trick of material nature. We just get very confused. So if we think of them, we go back to our movie example. There's a movie playing on a screen. All kinds of things are happening, drama, romance, loss, but imagine that nobody's watching it. So all these things are happening on the screen, but nobody's watching it. So the movie is still playing, the story's unfolding, but nobody in the room is experiencing happiness or distress because of it. Now, imagine somebody sits down and starts watching it, you know, and then they get really into it. They're laughing, they're crying, they're nervous, they're angry at the characters. And so it's like, what changed? The movie didn't change. What changed is that the person became invested in the story. And then we say, why are they invested? They're invested because they want something from the movie. They want the character to win. They don't want them to get hurt. They want things to work out in a certain way because they're overly identified with this character. Right? And this is the enjoy mentality. This is the misdirected enjoy mentality. And it becomes like, I don't want to just experience material nature, but I want material nature to give me the experience I want. Like I'm looking to that movie to fill my cup. I want it to give me what I want. And the moment that I want something from the movie, I'm invested in what's happening. So if it goes the way I want, I get pleasure. If it doesn't, it's distress. But it's material nature that's creating what's happening on the screen. But my desire to enjoy what's happening on the screen is what makes me so affected by it. Now, I have a confession. I sometimes get very addicted to like a Netflix binge. This happens like a handful of times a year. I get addicted to a certain Netflix show and I just go on like a binge. And and recently, not recently, but the last one that happened, it was maybe a couple months ago. I started watching this show where like the acting was really bad. And my husband would come in and be like, this is terrible. Why are you watching this? And I was like, I actually kind of like it because I'm less engrossed in it. Like it's entertaining enough, but I can turn it off at the end of the day. And I'm like, I'm not, sometimes my binges, I'm up like all night watching the show. And so like on the edge of my seat, And I was like, I actually kind of like this because I'm less identified. There's something freeing about being able to turn it off and know that it's not, these aren't your friends. This isn't your life. It's like, so, so we can see how we get so engrossed and we over-identify. And the Gita is telling us that we're doing this in our lives. We're over-identifying with our roles, with our houses, with our jobs. We're making them us. And then they become the cause of our happiness and distress because of that over-identification. So the Gita is encouraging us to just pull back a little bit. Just pull back a little bit. And that pulling back comes from understanding that I'm actually not that. I'm actually a spirit soul. I'm actually an eternal spark of divinity. And my eternal nature is that of a servant of God. And so the Gita encourages us to start relating to things in our life from this identity. And to the degree that we do that, we start to become free. That's the pulling back that the process that the Gita is showing us. So that we're less engrossed because we're relating with things in a different way. And it becomes very sweet. I've been trying this on in my life very wholeheartedly for several years now. And I feel that same freedom that I feel from watching shows with bad actors. I feel less of a grip. It's less like these circumstances are controlling me. It's and it's sweeter and lighter. So this is the process by which to become less entangled in our own lives. Shraddhanjali. Shraddhanjali, I love both of your names. Can I tell you that? I know I use them interchangeably. You just have two really good names.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to add that I had well, two things. One, we could choose what movie to go into too. I was thinking, when you said like the thing is playing, but someone has to enter the theater in order to experience it. And we could choose what kind of movie, like if you're going into like a horror movie, like what's your consciousness, or if you're going into like, a movie about, uplifting things, like we're making that choice, which movie to go see or to hang out in. And I, a while back, in my 30s, I was, I had little kids, and I was real, I would like, I went to a therapist who I was saying like I was having like these little mini panic attacks or my heart. And he talked to me about, what do you do for leisure? And at that point, the only thing I could really do was like watch movies and things like that because, you have a house full of little kids. And he said, well, when you're watching the movie, just repeat this mantra, which is, this is not happening to me personally, because I would get so engrossed that I would actually have physical, I mean, ADHD people also do this, that you get physical reactions, like it hits you in the heart, or you get, whatever. And he said, and I still to this day, like if I'm getting too engrossed in a movie, I'll step back and go, this is not happening to me personally. I don't have to have adrenaline rushes because they're falling off the cliff. It just, when you were
Yes.
talking, it reminded me of my little movie mantra. This is not happening to me personally. I can calm down.
Yeah. That is exactly it. And the Gita is saying that exact thing, but just zooming out another level to say, even our daily experiences, the loss of a job, a health problem, this is not you. This is your mind body vehicle. You are something much deeper. So let's not get overly identified with with thinking that you are that. And I love what you said too about we can choose what movie we go into. This is the practice of spiritual life. This is what spiritual life is all about. It's what movie are you choosing to go into? Because just like you said, it affects your consciousness. And that's why we, practice things like chanting, kirtan, association with like-minded people. Those kinds of movies that we engross our consciousnesses will bring us in deeper or will bring us up higher. They'll remind us of who we actually are. We won't be getting engrossed in something that is doomed to eventually bring us down, as the cause of our demise. No, we're engrossed in something that is freeing us, that is liberating us. Or you can choose movies that bring you down, or that validate, that really just enforce the identities and roles that you already overly identify with. And that isn't always necessarily bad, but it is going to cause you a great deal of happiness and distress, because that's the nature of material energy. It's temporary, and even the best things will eventually go. So that's a beautiful point. It's what movie are you going into? And you could even tie that core, you could correspond that to the modes of nature. You could go into a movie where there's a beautiful sunset. That's like the mode of goodness. You're feeling very content. Or you can go into a romantic movie. That's the mode of passion. You're feeling very, very passionate. Or you can go into like a crime movie where people are killing each other, and it's like this is the mode of ignorance. All of this is affecting your consciousness in ways that you don't even realize, definitely in a movie, but to speak of in our lives. So every day, every moment, we have choices of what we're directing our consciousness to. And that's so mindfulness is, like a buzzword these days. It's so important just to be aware of where we're directing our consciousness because it's shaping who you are today, tomorrow, and for eternity. So yeah, really nice. Thank you, Stella. So then the next part of this verse is that Krishna's helping us understand that the body and mind themselves are part of material nature. Okay, so when the soul turns towards material nature, looking for enjoyment, it experiences the world through a particular body and mind machine. And as we see all around us, different bodies are equipped for different kinds of experiences. So like a bird can fly. My body can't do that. A dog has like senses and instincts and attractions that are different than mine. My dog will like see a piece of poop on the ground and think that looks like the most delicious thing ever. And I'm like, no, that is disgusting. It's the same object, but it's a completely different experience. And it's not because the soul inside the dog is inherently attracted to disgusting things, so-called disgusting things. It's because the soul is experiencing material nature through a particular kind of material equipment. So material nature provides the body, the senses, and the mind through which all of the experiences happen. But Krishna's making this important distinction. Material nature provides the experience. The soul wants to enjoy the experience, and that's why happiness and distress enter the picture. And just like we said, what we can do about it is direct our consciousness towards things that remind us who we are, that bring us to at least bring us to a higher level, a higher mode of material nature. From ignorance to passion, or from passion to goodness, and then eventually from goodness to transcendence. And that's how we climb up the ladder of consciousness back to where we belong. So just like Shraddhanjali said, the more invested we become in enjoying through this body and mind, the more we start identifying with them. Just like she said, my mind is anxious. We don't usually think my mind is anxious. We think I'm anxious. If your body changes, we don't think my body is changing. We think I'm changing. This is even exhibited in our language, how engrossed this consciousness is for us. So the more that we look towards material nature for our happiness, the more important everything happening within material nature becomes to me. Because now my happiness depends on it. And this is when we really start trying hard to get material nature to cooperate with our plans. So this whole reason, this is like the philosophical depth behind why in spiritual life things are set up the way that they are. We have these regulations, these things that we stay away from. Many of us take vows at the beginning of our spiritual life for no intoxication, no sex outside of marriage, like things that can just completely pull us out and get us so engrossed that we start overly identifying, forget who we actually are, and get just like caught in this cycle of happiness and distress because it's so damn addicting. So we try to even stay away from those things to begin with, recognizing just how distracting they can be. And in the meantime, we commit to spending a certain amount of time chanting divine sound every day, divine names of God every day, because those sounds in themselves have an effect on the consciousness that brings us higher. Brings us higher. And again, bringing us higher is just bringing us up this staircase of consciousness, the modes of material energy, to transcendence, which is liberation, which is connection with God, which is eternal happiness and fulfillment. And as spiritualists, we've decided that that's our final destination. That's the address that's typed into our GPS. So this is like the strategy of which this is our map to get there. And the Gita gives us this map. It's not a map that we're making up. It's a map that's been tried and tested from seekers and seers from the beginning of time. And we've inherited this map. And not just inherited it, but been gifted it. And now we're just trying to follow in their footsteps. So that's the process of spiritual life. But what happens, and even when we commit to spiritual life, even when we commit to a spiritual practice, we still find ourselves getting very engrossed in the movie. And don't expect that you won't, because you still will. As much time as I spend doing service and sadhana, you still get just completely engrossed in the movie of our lives. We start to want to change the movie. If this person could change, if I could get this thing I wanted, if my body were different, if I had more money, then I'd be okay. And there's nothing wrong with trying to improve our circumstances. Okay? That's, to improve our circumstances. The problem is when we start believing that my peace depends on getting these circumstances exactly the way that I want them. Because now I'm asking material nature to provide my happiness. When the whole intention of this is to take it one level deeper and see that it's not things, my happiness doesn't depend on things going the way that I want and the way that I don't want. My happiness depends on my connection with Krishna. And if I can start to see everything happening on the movie screen as divinely arranged by the creator, and not just the creator, but my very best friend, my very best well-wisher, then I'm always, even if I'm experiencing a little bit of pain or discomfort, that connection, that faith carries me through. And I don't just fall down the ladder of consciousness again. So maybe the practical question from this verse is, what am I expecting this situation to give me? What am I trying to get from this person? What am I trying to get from this body, from this career, from other people's opinions of me? Because oftentimes underneath our suffering is a very simple expectation. And that is, I need this to make me happy. And Krishna's not saying that we shouldn't enjoy things or love people or have preferences. He's asking us to notice how much responsibility we've given to material things for our happiness. Because material nature is always changing. And if my happiness depends upon getting something that's always changing to be exactly the way I want it to be, my happiness is going to be pretty unstable. I mean, this is just reality. It's funny, sometimes we're surprised by it, but this is just reality. It's the way it's built. We see it all around us. And so this is where Krishna's going to go in the next verse. He's going to explain that this enjoy mentality doesn't just create happiness and distress, but it draws us deeper and deeper into association with material nature. And the more we associate with it, the more we attach with it. So now Krishna's going to show us how this desire to enjoy really becomes like entanglement. And this isn't to have like a pessimistic view on the world. It's to have a realistic view on the world so that we can navigate it in a way that uplifts us and doesn't degrade us. Because the world will uplift or degrade you, inevitably. The world will uplift or degrade you. And it all depends on what address you have typed into your GPS and how accurately your GPS is calibrated to bring you to that final destination. And it is my belief that the Gita gives us the best GPS you can buy out there. You can't get a more foolproof GPS that and it really knows all the road closures, when the traffic's bad, where the cops are, like all of the things. It's in the Gita if we just put our faith into it. Does anybody want to share anything? We haven't heard from anybody today. We can actually just stop here and have some discussion.
I'll share a moment if you guys don't
Yes,
mind.
yes, please.
I'm so sorry for coming late, first off, so forgive me. Um, and yet I'm always still surprised. Like it's been a while. I've been away. I've missed being live, but whether I listen to a recording or I jump in a few minutes late, I always hear what I need to hear or what I need to be reminded of. And it makes me smile because I love when I can see the way that Krishna works to just sort of be like, don't forget. I'm like, oh yeah. Um, but I'm very in tune with this topic and these verses right at the moment because I'm headed back to work next week, this week. And it's always been the place where I can either struggle the most with becoming too attached to outcomes that have nothing to do with me, taking things personally, watching the movie around me, somehow thinking that I'm the doer, or it is one of the best opportunities for me to remember that I am spirit, I am divine, that this is a Leela playing out that I have no control over, that the further I back away from the drama around me and into Krishna, the way everything just then unfolds. So, thanks for reminding me that ultimately the way that I view it and the way that I see it, whether I come from, that lens of the heart and that lens of love and understanding and compassion and bhakti, or if, I jump right in and I'm like, oh, into the mix of like, now I'm a character in this chaotic movie that I don't want to be in. And it's not easy. It goes back and forth. Some days I'm just watching and going, wow, this is like really interesting. I'm so grateful that I can witness this and kind of surrender. And then other days I'm right in it. But I find as I spend more time in sadhana, in seva, in sangha and community and connecting to, you know, Krishna and filling what you always say is that God hole in our heart with him, the more I'm able to be a witness rather than a participant. And when I am in a moment of participating, they're not that long. And to me,
Mm.
that's like the best gift that, you know, I'm not perfect. I never will be perfect. I'm actually happy I'm a recovering perfectionist because it gives me permission to make mistakes because that's what I do. That's how I learn. And I do it with grace and humility that I never had before. But the length of time that I'm drawn into, like you said, like the Netflix obsessions, the length of time that I'm stuck there gets shorter and shorter. And I I just am so grateful that I have the opportunity to use the tools to say, whoa, it's time to, come back to spirit, come back to the divine and regroup. And yeah, I'm really grateful. Thanks for letting me in a little bit late.
Mm. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I had just an experience just this weekend with two of my friends. One of my friends was going to be in the same town as another friend, and she texted her and asked her if she was available to have lunch or something. And her response was like, I'm so busy with all of this and this. I can give you some recommendations, you know, and then that friend on the receiving end was like really like disappointed. Like, I can't believe she's not making time for me. And you know, it's interesting because from my perspective, I could see like what was going on here. Like that one friend was just like completely overwhelmed with life and felt like, you know, she needed like that person was looking for something from her. And I was like, look, I think if you just left her a message and said, hey, look, I don't need you to do anything for me. I just really want to see you. And, you know, I think that would be like that would go a long ways. And so she did that, and then it was like a whole thing. But it's just so interesting how often we get so engrossed in the story of what's going on. Sometimes we make it about ourselves so much that then we sabotage the story, you know, whereas if we could just pull out a little bit and have that perspective of love, you know, and then we move through the story with just love and grace, how many blessings come from just that. And it doesn't happen by accident. We're able to navigate through life with love because we're connected to the ultimate source of love. And that's what Krishna wants for us all. And I see that as it happening in my own life as a teacher. You know, I'm able to show up more for students just from that place without making it mean something about myself. And I see that that's such a more effective and place to be, you know, and it also inspires me. It uplifts me more, you know, than getting just so engrossed in the movie, which is basically just so seeped in our own self-centeredness. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else want to share? Kripa Maya, do you have
Well, I
some
just,
reflections or insights for us? Insights would be nice.
I'm appreciating everything that's been said, especially when Devi mentioned how we, seeing the world through the lens of love. And, when she said that, I just kind of realized that when we're talking together like this about Krishna, we're actually connecting with each other on a soul level. And those type of soul connections are what enable us, gives us the strength to pursue the discipline of bhakti and devotional service. And the other, I just took some notes. I just really appreciated the movie analogy and just how, there's some movies can move us closer to Krishna, some movies move us away from Krishna. But I, I extended the analogy a little more because desire is like the ticket booth into the movie. As soon as I desire something, then I have to create a set of circumstances to fulfill that desire. So the movie's begun. I'm starting to write the script. Circumstances. I'm going to adjust the circumstances so I can fulfill this desire. And then that creates a whole set of expectations for each of those circumstances to exist. And as soon as I do that, I've been meditating a lot on this. As soon as I meditate on my expectations, then I really get, find myself getting kicked in the face by material nature. It just, I just set yourself up to be frustrated, you know. So I just, and the other thing you mentioned about, I think it was, you said about Krishna being our best friend. And I was thinking, what an amazing, like, for example, how many atoms are in our body? Like they say there's 60 trillion cells within our body. And how many atoms are in those 60 trillion cells? Here we're like an atom compared to Krishna. And there's billions and trillions of atoms. And Krishna has a personal, loving relationship with each of those atoms. If we want it, just how infinite a friend, Krishna is, how infinite his love. It's totally inconceivable. It's just, so the last thing I just wanted to mention too, I just was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and there was a beautiful, in the restaurant there in the Brooklyn Temple, they had this beautiful chalkboard where it says, what's the wisdom you live by? So everybody writes down the wisdom they live by. So this one person, they said, be grateful or a great fool. F-O-O-L. So be grateful, F-U-L, or be a grateful, F-O-O-L. So, I think that seeing Krishna's greatness enables us to see full or become filled with gratitude. Whereas when we cancel Krishna from our life, we just become so foolish. It makes, at least I know myself, when I don't see perceive Krishna's hand in orchestrating my life.
That was amazing. Is anybody else just like when Kripalaya talks and just like, whoa, wow, thank you. Thank you, Kripalaya. I love how you expanded the analogy with the ticket booth to the movie theater is our desire. And then we try to get into the movie theater and write our own script. And then we're frustrated when we can't. There's already a movie going on in there. We can't just go write our own script. We could choose where we sit. We can choose, what snacks we buy, but we can't write our own script. So it's really I really appreciate that. Thank you. Martine, did you have something? I see Nancy on camera.
No, I was driving to a dentist appointment. I've been listening and taking it all in. So it's always very relevant. It's funny how, these drops of wisdom fall into the moment and it's relatable. And how do you call it? You surgically cut it in such a way for us every time that it is, just easy to incorporate and to think about and to reflect upon and to take in through the day. So thank you I really appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know why I came on. Maybe my phone is acting up. I don't know. I knew I need an upgrade, but I need an upgrade in so many ways, so let's not go there.
Well, we are happy because we got to see your face and
Thank you.
Hear your voice. Thank you. Erin, do you want to take us home here?
Well, I just really want to share. I appreciate the whole class, and I really appreciate Kripa Maya's words of zooming us out and connecting us to the greatness of Krishna, because I feel like the whole class I really zoomed in and thought about people in my life who, I just spent a weekend with my mother-in-law, and we have a very stereotypical, difficult relationship. And I was just like, yes, all of this stuff, she drives herself crazy because of the, just personal attacks that she perceives everything to be. Literally there was a dumpster across the street and it was in her sight line. It was, she was just constantly, there's something that's it's everything is an attack on her personally, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I don't want to complain about her too much. But I'm also trying to not just see oh, this other person is so obviously removed from these teachings, or so obviously in the thick of miserableness because they are so seeped in that identification with or that perfectionism or whatever it is, and I am really trying to not just think about how these teachings apply to others. All right, how does it apply to myself as well? Because even when I prepare to go see her, there are a lot of things about her that really frustrate me, and I try to remember. I think it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur who says something about you're seeing the flaws in other people because, you know, I myself am honeycombed with flaws. So I feel like it's like, yeah, it's so interesting how to like hear these teachings and like take them in for my own my own benefit, my own learning, and not just be like, oh, that's why she is the way she is, or like or just like justify in a way of like, you know, wow, if only she read the Gita, or only if only she did this, like she would live like such a more peaceful life. And like, yeah, I don't ever want to be like, well, I read the Gita, so therefore I live a more peaceful life and I can see the problems that you're having with material life. So it's just interesting, and yeah, super helpful to constantly be reminded to zoom out to, and to not just like get into the minutia of like how these teachings apply to others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the real test. When we're around people that don't even know anything about these teachings. I mean, and frankly, if you don't know anything about these teachings, you can't help it. Like that's where material consciousness is going to go. We all are showing up to that ticket booth. We all have desire for pleasure. And it's just they stumble into a wrong theater, and it's just bringing them somewhere that is, and they don't even know. So how could we blame them? So yeah, it should make us a little more compassionate when we understand. Now it's also how often we stumble into those theaters and we don't even know we're in there either. Martine, did you have something before you go? No? Okay. Shashank?
Hare Krishna. So this was resonating in me. So especially after hearing the talk yesterday from Prabhuji. So yes, while we are doing all these things, so he said one thing that we are very successful in achieving materials, right? So be it finance or be it whatever we need is what we have done, but not dharma or the moksha. But here, what resonates with me at this point of time is yes, while doing all these things, he was very clear on saying that we don't have purpose for anything. So I think today also what you said, that also again tends to the same thing, that anything we do should have a meaning and a purpose to it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. That's what I am feeling. So it's the same thing what he told yesterday, just pulling the rope without the cart even being attached to it.
Yes. Yeah. Such a nice connection. Thank you, Shashank. Yeah, I think just to put this in super simple terms right before we go, I'll try to give you like a two-liner thing to walk out of here with today, is that we're all going to show up to that ticket booth. We all have that material desire. So we're all going into the movie theater, and it is up to us which movie theater we're walking into. And to Shashank's point, to have that level of awareness, I'm walking into a movie theater in the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Or am I going out to the side and getting into the nice IMAX theater of transcendence? And we do that by chanting, by kirtan, by studying scripture, by association. That's the movie theater of transcendence. And so it's for us to decide, and for us to cultivate a little bit more awareness around. Yeah. And there's a beautiful like springboard in that movie theater of transcendence that like we just jump on and then we just spring completely out of the movie theater. We're out of everything altogether and we're just like blissed out. So that's the goal. Okay, my friends, that is all for today. Thank you for coming and for joining. It's beautiful to see you and to be with you all. And we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank
Hopefully we
you.
have a
Thank
fun
you. Hare
surprise on
Krishna.
Thursday, but let's see what Krishna arranges. Thank
Hare
you all.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.